Power has always shaped the fate of men more quietly than violence ever could. Machiavelli understood this not as a moral endorsement, but as a psychological reality rooted deeply in human behavior. Violence is loud, immediate, and often temporary. Power, by contrast, works invisibly through incentives, fear, admiration, and dependence. Those who orbit power are influenced by it, whether they consciously acknowledge it or not. Their decisions subtly adjust. Their language softens, their priorities shift. To befriend those in power, then, is not merely a social act or a networking maneuver. It is a strategic decision that alters the direction of one's life. It determines access, information, and opportunity long before outcomes are visible. Yet power itself is indifferent to loyalty when loyalty no longer serves its interests. It rewards alignment, not sentiment. This is why wisdom must walk beside ambition at every step. Without wisdom, proximity to power becomes a psychological trap disguised as opportunity. You mistake closeness for security and access for protection. In reality, power consumes usefulness and discards excess. Only those who understand this remain sovereign near it. Many mistake networking with submission, believing that humility means shrinking themselves in the presence of influence. They bend their spines, dilute their values, soften their opinions, and become agreeable shadows, hoping proximity will eventually transform into protection. Machiavelli would see this as a fatal misunderstanding of how power thinks. Submission does not inspire loyalty, it invites exploitation. Power respects usefulness, not obedience. Those who erase themselves become interchangeable, and interchangeability is the first step toward disposability. The psychology is simple. If you offer nothing distinct, you offer nothing irreplaceable. Those who are too eager to please signal insecurity, and insecurity signals that boundaries can be crossed without resistance. The first psychological rule when approaching power is therefore restraint. Never appear desperate for acceptance. Desperation announces weakness, and weakness invites disposal. Power may tolerate weakness temporarily, but it never protects it. True positioning requires composure, not compliance, and confidence rooted in self-respect rather than approval-seeking behavior. True friendship with power is never built on flattery alone, though flattery is often mistaken for influence. Flattery intoxicates rulers briefly, like sugar to the bloodstream, but it provides no nourishment. It creates noise, not trust. Machiavelli understood that while power enjoys admiration, it relies on competence. What endures is usefulness grounded in results, discretion in moments of vulnerability, and strategic silence when others rush to speak. A person in power lives under constant observation, by rivals, subordinates, enemies, and allies alike. Every word is weighed, every decision scrutinized. When you bring calm instead of chaos, solutions instead of applause, clarity instead of emotional theatrics, you become valuable. Your presence lowers pressure rather than increasing it. This is rare, and rarity commands respect. Machiavelli understood that usefulness rooted in outcomes outlives charm rooted in praise. Praise fades, results stabilize, and power, above all else, seeks stability. To befriend power wisely, you must first understand its loneliness. Power isolates by necessity. The higher one ascends, the fewer honest reflections remain. Truth becomes filtered through fear, ambition, and self-interest. This creates a psychological hunger, not for companionship, but for reliability, clarity, and emotional steadiness. Power is surrounded by people, yet starved of sincerity. If you can offer grounded presence without emotional dependency, you immediately differentiate yourself. You become someone who does not collapse under proximity, who does not seek validation from attention, and who does not panic when silence appears. However, this role demands inner discipline. You must not look to power for emotional fulfillment or personal worth. Those who seek emotional nourishment from power become liabilities, not allies. They demand what power cannot afford to give. The wise remain steady, self-contained, and emotionally sovereign, offering presence without pressure. One of the greatest dangers in networking with power is overexposure. Availability is often mistaken for loyalty, but constant presence diminishes perceived value. Machiavelli would advise restraint and rhythm. Appear when needed, withdraw when unnecessary. Scarcity increases worth because it signals independence and self-sufficiency. When you are always present, your absence is never felt. When you are selective, your silence becomes noticeable. Those in power are acutely aware of who fills space and who creates impact. When your absence disrupts equilibrium more than your presence fills it, you have positioned yourself correctly. Overexposure also breeds familiarity, and familiarity breeds disregard. Strategic distance preserves respect. Power does not chase what is always within reach. It values what cannot be summoned without intention. Wise proximity is measured, not constant. Philosophically, befriending power is an exercise in self-mastery before it is an exercise in strategy. You must know who you are before entering rooms where identities are subtly reshaped. Power has a gravitational pull. It bends values, alters perceptions, and quietly rewrites boundaries. Without a strong inner compass, you will unconsciously adopt the priorities and moral compromises of whoever outranks you. This erosion happens slowly, invisibly, and often feels like progress until integrity is gone. Wisdom is not rigidity, but continuity, maintaining your core while adapting your methods. Flexibility without self-erasure is the mark of the unexploitable. Those who lose themselves become tools. Those who retain themselves become partners. Power tests not just your loyalty, but your coherence. Machiavelli believed alliances should be formed with clear-eyed realism, not romantic idealism. Friendship with power must be mutually beneficial but asymmetrically safe. You should offer value without binding your survival to the relationship. Offering too much creates dependency, and dependency breeds fear. When power begins to feel constrained or threatened by reliance, it eliminates the source of discomfort. The goal is to be helpful without becoming indispensable in a way that triggers insecurity. Influence should feel supportive, not controlling. The wisest allies are those whose presence strengthens power without overshadowing it. They enhance decision-making, reduce risk, and stabilize outcomes without demanding recognition. This balance, being useful yet non-threatening, is rare and therefore powerful. There is a subtle but dangerous line between being valuable and being disposable, and it is crossed when your usefulness becomes purely transactional. Being used and discarded often happens when your contribution is visible, finite, and tied to a single outcome. Power consumes short-term tools and moves on without remorse. Machiavelli would advise embedding yourself in processes rather than moments. When your influence improves systems, culture, or long-term stability, your value becomes diffuse and difficult to remove. You are no longer the hammer brought in to strike once, but part of the structure that holds everything together. Wise operators understand this and work invisibly over time. They attach themselves to continuity rather than urgency. When your presence quietly reduces chaos and increases predictability, power hesitates to remove you, not out of affection, but out of self-interest. Psychologically, power does not test loyalty during comfort, but under pressure. Stress reveals priorities, ethics, and survival instincts. Watch carefully how those in power behave when things go wrong. Do they deflect blame downward to protect their image? Do they sacrifice allies to preserve optics? Or do they absorb responsibility when it is costly? Machiavelli would advise observation before attachment. Early alignment feels efficient, but it binds you to outcomes you did not help design. Patience protects you from inheriting consequences that are not yours. Power reveals itself not in speeches or promises, but in crisis management. Those who fail this test will eventually fail you. Alignment without observation is emotional gambling, and the price is often paid later. Befriending power also requires emotional neutrality. If praise inflates you or rejection destabilizes you, you become predictable. Predictability is exploitable. Those who hold power often test reactions, watching closely for dependence. Calm consistency unsettles manipulative personalities because it denies them leverage. When your mood remains stable regardless of approval or distance, you signal independence. Power may not love independence, but it respects it because it cannot fully control it. Emotional self-regulation becomes a form of quiet authority. You are harder to provoke, harder to intimidate, and harder to manipulate. This psychological steadiness makes you safer to keep close and more dangerous to discard. This is where ethics quietly re-enter the conversation. Machiavelli is often misunderstood as advocating amorality, when in reality he emphasized survival within unstable systems. Befriending power wisely requires discernment, knowing when compromise is tactical and when it becomes corrosive. If you sacrifice all principles, you hollow yourself out and become disposable. Power senses emptiness and replaces it. Yet if you refuse all compromise, you become rigid and irrelevant. Wisdom lies in selective firmness. You must choose your non-negotiables carefully and defend them calmly. Power respects boundaries that are consistently enforced. Ethics, when practiced strategically rather than emotionally, become a stabilizing force rather than a liability. Never confuse access with intimacy. Proximity creates illusion. Power often shares space without sharing trust. Being invited into rooms, meetings, or conversations does not mean you are protected within them. Guard your words with discipline. Information is currency, and careless speech depreciates your value. Machiavelli warned that those who speak too freely near power often expose themselves unnecessarily. Silence preserves optionality. Listening gathers leverage. Every word you release becomes something that can be remembered, misinterpreted, or used. The wise speak deliberately, aware that restraint is not fear but foresight. In the presence of power, words linger longer than intentions. Another subtle art is knowing when to detach. Power is not static. Regimes fall, alliances shift, influence migrates. Those who fuse their identity to a single source of power collapse when it disappears. Diversification is survival. Cultivate multiple relationships, skills, and reputational anchors. Independence is not betrayal, it is insurance. Machiavelli would see this as strategic foresight rather than disloyalty. The ability to step away without panic signals strength. Those who can leave are treated with more respect than those who cannot. Detachment preserves dignity when circumstances change. The wise networker never competes directly with power. Competition invites destruction. Power does not tolerate rivals near it. Instead, complement. Identify what power cannot do openly, efficiently, or ethically, and become excellent there. Fill blind spots rather than occupy center stage. When your role resolves tensions without attracting attention, you become quietly essential. Complementary influence allows you to operate without triggering insecurity or envy. Power defends what stabilizes it. By positioning yourself as support rather than threat, you extend your longevity and safety within the hierarchy. There is a spiritual dimension to this strategy that Machiavelli understood intuitively, even if he never framed it in mystical terms. Power feeds the ego, and ego feeds on attention. The more you require recognition, validation, or approval, the more power gains leverage over you. When your sense of worth is internally anchored, power loses its ability to manipulate you emotionally. You can walk away when conditions become corrosive. This ability to leave is the ultimate form of leverage. Power fears what it cannot cage. Freedom, not rebellion, is what truly unsettles authority. Those who are inwardly complete cannot be coerced easily. Machiavelli recognized that fear binds individuals more tightly than chains, while inner freedom creates unpredictability, and unpredictability commands respect. Being used and discarded often stems from over-identification with proximity. When you begin to believe that access to power defines your value, you tolerate disrespect, erasure, and moral compromise. Wise individuals avoid this trap by maintaining parallel sources of meaning, mastery of a craft, intellectual depth, personal integrity, or a reputation that exists independently of any single alliance. These anchors protect your identity. Power then becomes an option rather than a lifeline. When power senses that you could survive without it, it treats you differently. Dependence invites exploitation, self-sufficiency invites respect. This internal separation is what allows you to engage strategically without surrendering yourself. Observe carefully how power rewards those who make it look good without demanding credit. Public recognition is seductive but dangerous. Visibility attracts rivals, envy, and political risk. Behind-the-scenes influence, by contrast, endures quietly. Machiavelli favored invisible strength over visible glory because it avoids backlash. When power associates you with stability rather than spotlight, your position becomes safer and more durable. You are seen as a stabilizing force rather than a competitor. The paradox is that the less you seek acknowledgement, the more indispensable you become. Influence that does not announce itself is the hardest to remove. Philosophically, befriending power tests your understanding of human nature more than any other relationship. Power does not change people, it magnifies what already exists. A careless person without authority becomes dangerous with it. An ethical person becomes more consistent. A manipulator becomes ruthless. Machiavelli advised judging alliances not by promises, but by patterns. Patterns reveal destiny. Words are performances. Behavior under pressure is truth. Aligning with character rather than charm protects you from future betrayal. Those who ignore patterns are often surprised by outcomes that were visible from the beginning. Never assume gratitude from power. Gratitude implies debt, and power avoids debt whenever possible. Expecting appreciation sets you up for resentment and disappointment. Machiavelli warned against emotional accounting. Instead, measure success by retained access, consistent respect, and freedom of movement. These are the currencies that matter. When power continues to include you without suspicion, restrict you without hostility, and release you without retaliation, you have succeeded. Expecting thanks is a misunderstanding of how authority operates. Power rewards alignment, not sacrifice. The wise individual also understands the strategic value of appearing smaller than they are. Displaying too much intelligence, ambition, or independence too quickly can trigger insecurity. Machiavelli advised controlled self-revelation. Let others underestimate you. It gives you space to move without resistance. Underestimation is not humiliation, it is camouflage. Those who reveal everything too soon provoke competition. Those who reveal gradually maintain advantage. Power reacts defensively to perceived threats, not quiet competence. Subtlety preserves safety. Befriending power is ultimately an exercise in timing. Insight delivered too early is ignored. Delivered too late is punished. Timing requires listening more than speaking, watching more than acting. Silence is not emptiness, it is data collection. Those who rush to contribute often reveal anxiety. Those who wait understand context. Power respects those who speak when it matters, not those who speak often. Precision in timing separates influence from noise. Machiavelli understood that restraint is not passivity, but intelligence in motion. When power tests your boundaries, your response defines your future. Overreaction invites domination, passivity invites exploitation. Balanced resistance, calm, firm, and unemotional, earns respect. Machiavelli recognized that power respects those who cannot be easily bent, but also cannot be easily broken. Boundaries enforced without drama signal strength. They communicate that you understand your value and will not surrender it cheaply. This equilibrium is rare and therefore powerful. Philosophically, this path requires acceptance of impermanence. Alliances are seasons, not monuments. Power shifts, contexts evolve, and clinging to expired relationships is as dangerous as forming reckless ones. Wisdom lies in recognizing when a chapter has ended and exiting without bitterness or panic. Dignified departure preserves reputation. Those who leave well are remembered differently than those who cling desperately. Machiavelli valued exits as much as entries. The greatest protection against being used is inner sufficiency. When you no longer need power to feel significant, you engage with it from strength rather than hunger. Hunger is visible. Power feeds on it. Fulfillment starves manipulation. When your life is full, power becomes a strategic engagement rather than a psychological need. Those who are complete cannot be consumed. In the end, befriending those in power is not about climbing beside them, but standing steadily near them without losing yourself. Machiavelli's lesson is not cynicism, but clarity. Understand power, respect its nature, and never surrender your autonomy to it. Those who master this balance are neither used nor discarded. They remain quietly formidable long after the powerful have changed hands. This is the Golden Circle Philosophy channel. Like the video, share it with a friend and subscribe for more videos like this one. Thank you for watching.